One of our team members said this very beautifully, that the new currency in today's time is content. And I want to add to it is also influence. In this world, on social media, people are also expecting to be given this free quality, top-notch
Right.
quality stuff. And if you don't deliver, then they'll just pull you down in an instant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk about million bosses who are not even paying you. Now somebody like me who is an inactive creator has converted into a creator, where I know that if I do not talk about the work that I'm doing, or if I do not talk about what kind of interventions we are doing at workplaces,
Mm.
the world will forget, and the world
Yeah.
forgets like this. The
Yeah.
world forgets in a week, in a
Yeah.
day, in an instant.
Awesome. Thank you, folks, for coming and joining us for the second fireside chat. So last week we had a session with Nameek Potnis around NFTs and creator economy. This week we have Pallavi Pareek, with whom we are going to be talking about mental wellness and the creator economy. So every week we are trying to bring in guests who can talk about the various aspects around the creator economy. Feel free to drop any questions that you might have into the chat. But end of this conversation, we're happy to take them and discuss some of these topics, right? So let's get started. Hey Pallavi, welcome to Thousand Faces Club.
Thank you so much, Dharmesh. So excited to be here. Much
How are you,
needed
how are
conversation.
yes, how are you feeling now?
Quite an ironic topic, right? I think that we're talking about mental health, well-being. There are good days, there are bad days, and this is just one of those days where you're talking about something that you yourself are also actively going through. So,
Right.
pretty stoked, I would say.
Right. So let me start with this very controversial thing where, so let's say every sort of the founder's life is a hard life. It's not something that's easy to tackle on. And it's even more harder when you're dealing with the kind of pressure that you might already have, but you're dealing with a topic which could be something reverse to that. Like, how do you handle that?
Signed up for this, Dharmesh, I would say. Ever since we started this journey, or I started this journey, I already knew that this is something where we are talking about the future is going. And right now, we have enough data to actually support that the future of work is inclusive. The future of work is going to, instead of worshiping the customers, it's going to worship the employees, team members. Now we are realizing it. And the past 2 years have already created enough push for organizations to start appreciating and valuing from human resource to human capital conversation. But I signed up for this and was more or less prepared for what was coming about. But yes, but that does not mean that you don't have the ups and downs.
Right, right. This is something that even in user research, right? You read a lot about the biases, right? Just reading about the biases does not mean that I'm not going to fall prey for it. It still is the human nature, and we still go through what we go through.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And I think my second favorite topic is biases, because everybody, whenever we start using the word bias, immediately everyone wants to like just shed it. It's a dandruff or something, that we don't have bias, we don't have dandruff or dry scalp or anything. All of us have biases, and sometimes they help us also. It's just
yeah,
that not knowing which biases we are carrying with us and when they are manifesting or activating themselves, that's problematic. I just thought I'll use this opportunity to like just put this out, that it's okay
yeah,
to have biases. It's actually not
yeah,
possible not to have biases. So don't even
yeah.
try getting rid of them.
Yeah. Because this, before we move to the next one, this reminds me of one conversation I had with my ethnography professor in NID, right? So as a noob, I went and I asked him, how do I do research without having a bias?
Hmm.
So he kind of told me the golden words: you can never not have biases. You can only be aware of it. And I think that applies for all walks of life. Yeah. So with that conversation, why don't you tell us what do you do and what does Ungender do? Like a short introduction.
See, at a sorry.
No worries, no worries.
See, at a core level, what Ungender is working on is number one, making sure that organization as a unit are able to identify, recognize, and put themselves under the lens of different biases that they are carrying. These biases could be because of the gender stereotypes. These bias lens could be Potato is saying that they don't have any bias. Great for you, but let's have that conversation offline. At a core level, helping organization identify the different lenses of biases that they are wearing. Right now, we're more or less in a denial mode. And because of these biases, the kind of decisions which are happening in the organization are not really leading towards an equitable environment. What I mean by equitable environment is, see, diversity is inevitable. The only problem when we say that we are not diverse or we are looking for diversity is because we have only understood diversity from a single-sided lens of having more women in
Mm.
workplace. And thanks to all the phenomenal work that members from the community, especially Pride community, are doing, now we have understood LGBTQIA plus inclusion also as one of those lens. But there's so much more that's happening in our workplaces when it comes to diversity, ageism, ableism, regional, cultural diversity, work environment diversity. So that's inevitable. But because of these lenses, which companies are not aware of, we are not able to create an equitable environment for them. And that at the root level is what we are working towards using technology, laws, a little bit of human intervention, and basically just telling you that, hey, Dharmesh, you're wearing a lens. And Dharmesh keeps saying that, no, I'm not. So I have to like literally hold it and tell you that you are wearing one, and kind of either throw it away or change the number.
Interesting. So this extends to that conversation where we've been talking about like the dime thing. Can you talk about what is DEI and what does it mean for workplaces?
Let's decode it, because
Yeah.
initially it was just diversity, then it became DE, now it has become
Mhm.
DEI, and we are already talking about B and A, right? So
Okay.
if you have to look at all these alphabets, the first and foremost is diversity, which basically just says that, hey, every individual is different. That
Mhm.
difference could be visible, and that difference could be invisible to your eyes. But every individual is unique and different. Even if you put all the men, cis men in one room, that still doesn't mean that all of them have the same needs. That's where intersectionality starts playing a role. So that's where we're talking about the diversity, the uniqueness and individuality of each and every human, right? Now comes the next part, which is equity. The minute we say equity is basically that when you start with the premise that every individual has unique traits and unique needs, then equity means that providing for those unique needs. So you may
Mm.
have a garden outside your home, or you may have a garden like, or you may have a couple of plants in your home. The gardener, when they are handing off the plant to you, will still tell you how much sun is required for each plant. So at the face value, all of them look like plants. Right, but they all have very unique needs, different kind of sun exposure that they need, water quantity, and so on and so forth. This is what we're talking about equity, that our individual needs identified and then provided for, so that they can grow in the
Mhm.
manner that naturally they, as per their potential, they should be able to grow.
Right.
Now comes the inclusion. Now, inclusion is that there's enough space for everybody to grow. Everybody is able to actually feel that I belong here, that my needs are taken care of. So, inclusion is more of an internal feeling. So, while diversity is natural, equity is something by design, inclusion is more of an experiential thing, which
Right.
goes with the next one, which is belonging. That means that emotion that, yes, I can grow here. That internal emotion is not just a infrequent element, but it's a static, or it's a continuous emotion. That means I have chosen as an individual that I will stay here and I will grow here because I believe that there's an equitable environment for me. And
Right.
the last part is accessibility, which means whatever provisions that you have created for me. Imagine a creeper growing, right? You've
Mhm.
bought a creeper home, but you also need to provide it a wall. And sometimes,
Right.
in order to connect the creeper with the wall, you have to put this rope or a thread. That's
Right.
accessibility for the creeper to grow. So just
Right.
having a wall and a plant here and taking care of everything is not going to cut it. So in human terms, it of course gets more complicated, but in plants term, it's easier to understand. That's when you will actually see your garden flourishing, because all these elements are in place.
When you're explaining each of these terms, it for me it feels like a utopia. Everything is well. This is how it should be, right? When as people when we're connecting with each other. Now, where do you think we lie in the current state of affairs? If you could talk a little bit about how does it exist in organizations versus society, have you ever thought about it in that terms?
Every day. Because that's the battleground for us, right? We are not talking
Right.
about diversity and equity and this entire construct in public spaces or any other space or in homes. We are talking about these constructs in our war zone is corporates or workplaces.
Hmm.
That's the war zone that
Hmm.
we have identified. So definitely utopian concept, Dharmesh. I'll not deny that. Also because we have to understand that this is a continuous journey and a cyclical
Hmm.
continuous journey. That's how you can put it. So there is no end to it, right? No, every
Right.
day a small element can change in an organization, which will shift the diversity equation,
Hmm.
right? A new element can come in tomorrow. I suddenly join your team, and you cannot come and ask me on an everyday basis, or every new member who comes in your organization. This I'm talking about leaner teams. Imagine large
Hmm.
teams, right? It's not
Right.
possible to identify that. But these dynamics of diversity are changing on a day to day basis, and even if people don't come and go, there are developments in people's life which are happening. So today you may have all, what I'm just hypothetically saying, in Ungender, I'll tell you, we have only one person who is a cis male and a parent also, right? So
Hmm.
when we talk about these aspects of diversity in our team, we are also surprised that, okay, whenever we think of parental leave or any other conversation, that's the one person, but we are still creating for it, right? So
Hmm.
it's a continuous journey. And also because this has not been taught to us in a systematic manner. See, we all know how
Hmm.
to compute, we know how to do additions and multiplications, we know how to take care of our complex balance sheets, business plan. All these things have been taught to us.
Hmm.
When were we ever taught this particular subject in a
Right.
structured manner? So
Right.
everything that we are learning is from the school of social media, right? Or
Right.
university, whichever
Right.
that you're
The
subscribed to, which
right.
is not really very structured, I would say.
Yeah. 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 So let's say, for example, would it have been possible to have a startup or an organization like Ungender a decade back? If not, what changed in this decade is what I'm trying to understand.
It would have been possible. I would not deny
Mhm.
that. I started my career almost 2 decades ago from this
Right.
particular field. What's different is I did not start my career in India, I started outside India. But
Okay.
yes, it is possible. And I know a lot of amazing organizations which have been at it for close to
Mhm.
2 decades now. But yes, what changed is our subscription changed.
Hmm.
So, until the last 1 decade, where were we learning from? This nascent learning or inactive
Hmm.
learning which is happening for all of us has been happening because of the prevalent consumption of information from social media and different
Mhm.
channels that we are looking at. We're subscribing more to the blogs, dedicated subject matter, dedicated blogs, and other things. Before that, we were reading magazines like Times and Forbes and other
Mhm.
things, or newspapers anyway don't write about it in depth. They will just
Right.
highlight if an event has happened. And it was also not part of our textbooks. So, with all those things aside, what has happened in the past 1 decade is we are all more connected. So, what was
Hmm.
happening earlier, maybe somewhere in, let's say, Sweden, Denmark, or was happening in US, Mexico, all these other countries, all of us were living in this isolated silos. In Hindi it's called kueं ka mendak, wherein we were just like looking around and we were saying, oh, it's nobody doing it, then we also don't really need to do it. So
Hmm.
different global benchmark has started happening for all of us,
Hmm.
where we are not just competing with entities in my circle here or my city or my country here. Now
Right.
we're talking about global benchmarks. So
Right.
better standards, better learning, more exposure, and all these collectively have become noise and also
Right.
voice, right? These
Right.
things have happened now.
Right. Right. So that's interesting because when the social media first came into picture into everybody's life, the promise was that, hey, here is an open platform. You're not restricted by the age, you're not restricted by the gender, you're not restricted by the social status, income group, whatever it is. You could express who you are. You don't need to become famous to appear on TV, or you don't need to become famous to become a writer, where there are selected channels, right? Because in a newspaper, you have a limited sort of quote unquote like real estate. I need to figure out what is the most eye-catching thing for them to do. But social media became a continuous sort of an engagement, right? If I open at 10 o'clock, I see something else, 12 o'clock, I see something else. But that's how it started, right? And like you said, we started figuring out a lot more through social media. And we start off identifying that, okay, there is such lives that exist. Like there are a lot of these YouTubers, they document their lives in a lot of these Nordic countries and extreme cold weathers. And we figure, oh, there are people who live there, and the way that they live is completely different from how we live. Yeah. So this social media a place where all of these parameters that we spoke about, do you think that does the social media space, if you think of that as a society, how close it is to what you're thinking about?
It is a society. Let's start by calling it a society only. And I used to think that earlier, whenever something will go wrong or something that we are not able to find somebody responsible or accountable for, we had God, then we had society, now we have social media. Right.
Hmm.
So we found a third vertical to just put that, okay, this is what my source is, or this is the reason that I'm doing. But coming back to this, yes, social media has created this possibility also, this visibility of possibility, I would say. People, when I started this career journey, Dharmesh, a lot of people used to ask me, is it really possible that
Hmm.
someday there will be like an equitable work environment for all the genders, so you can actually expect people to make decisions and be able to sense and acknowledge that yes, there is a gender lens for all our decisions. And my favorite quote was that, hey, I'm a product of a society where pigs were flying,
Hmm.
so I have seen them flying, and that's why I'm so hell-bent when I came here that why can't we do the same thing here? And now instead of just me as a person and maybe 99 more people like me in India right now saying that it's possible, and this is the collective voice that I'm referring to. Now what it tells other organizations, workplaces, individuals who were either in disbelief or in denial, right?
Right.
Either of these two things, then for them, this becomes more visually and this
Hmm.
becomes more as an evidence. So
Hmm.
instead of just belief based action, it becomes an evidence based approach for leaders, corporates, non corporates, anybody who was non converted until now, to be able to say that, okay, this has been possible somewhere and I can also do that. While I'm not always in favor of everything that's going on social media, this is one element that I'm so thankful for.
Like how you said that this started out as a platform where it gave us an opportunity to express who we are, right? That's probably the case maybe a decade back, or when just social media started coming in. Like all the five of us could be in the same platform,
Right.
and probably one of us could be writing our thoughts, and the rest of the four were happy about just consuming what they were talking about.
Hmm.
Now, a decade after, we've also landed ourselves into a place where it also becomes a pressure to express ourselves, right? Because the idea of looking for knowledge has stopped, because we have been feeded with this endless, countless feeds, be it Google search or be it Facebook or be it Twitter. Nobody is really looking to actually cut through this noise and go look for. So then everybody has is demanding their attention. How does what is your take on that shift where people are being forced to express about who they are?
I'm one of those people, Dharmesh, and sometimes it's not really a very happy place to be in. See,
Right.
the creators and the conscious creators, I would call them, there was a joy in creating, right? The
Yeah.
expression that you're referring to, it all started with being able to express
Right.
anything, be it poetry or my way of doing my nails or just writing or drawing, anything that was just an expression that, hey, instead of just going and telling my family that I can sing better or I can write better, now I have this different platform altogether where I'm going to showcase it. That expression then converted into sustaining. Because
Hmm.
it's at one point in time, these are also the individuals, the conscious creators, who actually did not want to sit in a cubicle and
Right.
spend their days doing something which for, let's say, a salary only. Right.
Right.
So that expression became sustaining because that's where I think the most beautiful days are being spent. That when your hobby starts paying you, your life is
Yeah.
set. So you're just focusing on sustaining. But now
Right.
it has extended to influencing also because now people come looking and hungry for that knowledge from you, which you may not always be also in the mindset to create. So
Right.
what was just an expression as a joyful activity or a release or mental real unloading, I would say, mental creative unloading, now has become more of a subscription unload
Yeah.
that every week, because I also have to be consistent. A creator
Yeah.
has to be consistent, otherwise your metrics are going to go down, your page visits will go down. Now suddenly you're not one of those highlight creators or the influencers. So there has to be a subscription based creative generation, which is a
Right.
different load altogether. You didn't sign up for this,
Yeah.
right? And someone like me, who until 3 years ago was not even present actively, except for I think Facebook was used to be my place because friends and network was there. But now somebody like me who is an inactive creator has converted into a creator, where I know that if I do not talk about the work that I'm doing, or if I do not talk about how many, what kind of interventions we are doing at workplaces,
Mm.
the world will forget, and the world
Yeah.
forgets like this. The
Yeah.
world forgets in a week, in a
Yeah.
day, in an instant,
Yeah.
which is such a different pressure. And I can still
Yeah.
do it in a methodological way because I'm trained. My work is of a different category, so I can still create a calendar around it. But I can't even imagine for somebody who is just doing it for the sheer joy,
Right.
and now they have to think about doing it in a very structured, calendarized manner. That
Right.
this is how my creative switch has to go on and off.
No, that's so true. Internally, we keep joking that you start out as a creator, you want to escape one boss, but you eventually land up with a million bosses, right? Because sometimes they determine what content you should create and all of it. So let's go back to what
Sorry,
we were
I
talking.
just want to say one more
Uh,
thing. You know what? I can't even call it a cherry on the top because this is not a positive thing, but call it something else. We'll find an
mhm.
analogy. The thing is that these are most of the consumers of the content which is being created are not even paying for it.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah,
can understand if they were paying and then they were sharing their opinion that, hey, write like this or do like this, or I need more regular subscription, this and that. Somehow from in this world on social media, people are also expecting to be given this free quality, top notch
right.
quality stuff. And if you don't deliver, then they'll just pull you down in an instant.
Yeah,
So talk
yeah.
about million bosses who are not even paying you.
That's true. That's true. So if you look at, so I follow a lot of these folks on Instagram whom we call them finfluencers, who are like financial influencers. And a lot of them are more than just talking about the financial concepts. They put up an act, right? They play a certain character. Someone is dancing, someone is talking. So it's not just your expertise, but it's also about like an entertainment on top of it, right? So it that essentially also means that it suits only certain character. It is not probably for everyone else. Also, that also becomes a challenge.
Oh, absolutely. The number of times people have told me, and of course, other members in the team, that can you make some fun content around sexual harassment? And that kind of demand, I just don't get it. There's time for fun, there's time for something light, and then there's time for calling a spade. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
there's no cutting the corner, there's just no other way to do that. So
right.
this whole entertainment, and I think because somewhere, whenever people think creators, they think creativity. And when they think creativity, somehow they expect fun and jovial stuff, which is not
Mm,
true, which is not even
mm,
factual at all. It's just that different categories and segments of creators, we have not even started ignore. Talk about the diversity of creators economy. Okay. I think
right.
that's very important for people to understand that
Yeah,
they not all of them are going to be making fun stuff for you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's going to be hardcore knowledge, sincerity, and
Correct.
do justice to the subject that they are dealing with.
Correct, correct. So that is where I wanted to come, right? Because the platform by itself does not really tell you, oh, hey, you should post this or post that. Correct. Like today, I can go and post like a really serious, like really hard hitting, like astrophysics sort of paper, whatever. Like I'm tweeting, nobody's going to read that. The
Yeah.
platform by itself does not restrict us from posting certain type of content, but it's just the reach or like the reactions that we receive are only determined by how the algorithms function. Correct.
Yeah.
Now, what has happened is that, from where we started, what we are right now, and people know that there are certain themes that they can pick up to become influencer faster.
Yeah.
So if it's in Twitter, you have to become like a knowledge influencer, right? Tweet threads, right? Or in Instagram, you either need to have like a cute pet, or you need to be a vlogger, or you need to be a dancer, any of this, right?
Yeah.
So that really, if you're going behind only the singular focus of, let's say, metrics, saying that I want to become a million followers, I want to do this A, B, C, blah, 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 then don't you think we're losing the diversity there? the actual like celebration of who we are, isn't it getting lost?
Absolutely. Forget about the diversity. I'm more concerned. Of course, I'm concerned about diversity. Scratch that. I'm concerned about diversity. But at a more humane level, I'm saying that where is the authenticity of the original creation? So for
Right.
somebody like me, actually, for somebody like me, perhaps I really wanted to, let's say, sing. Let's take
Hmm.
that example, okay? But now I'm expected to do something else, not just sing, I have to dance also, or now I have to do something else as well. My original expression is anyway lost. So
Hmm.
at the end of the day, Dharmesh, whatever I'm creating is anyway not going to be received well because the DNA of a creator's output is lost,
Yeah.
right? The joy. And I think that's where we start distinguishing also. And that's why a lot of creators, influencers are also talking about that burnout. Also, because the rejection is also coming in mass, right? Then
Yeah.
that's another thing here that while the praises will come in mass, the rejection will also come in bulk. So one
Right.
suddenly 100,000 people are suddenly saying rejecting you overnight.
Yeah.
Tonight I go to sleep as a very happy person that everybody like sang praises for me. Tomorrow morning I have no idea how the world is going to treat me. So this
Right.
this volatility of how my audience is going to take my creation is something that I'm taking with myself with everything that I'm creating. And every time I'm just thinking, how is it going to be received? And
Right.
whatever that original creation could have been, it's accessorized and molded to look like thousand other things because right now the keywords have to match and the format has to match and my dog has to be there for me and whatever it is. So diversity is anyway lost, and that's I think what we're seeing also. If we start looking at our feeds, if we start looking at what everybody is watching, everybody whatever everybody is watching, everybody starts creating the same thing.
Hmm.
And now I see people doing it in my network and in my close circle. I see people looking at their phone for some time and then just like putting it on the side saying, oh, nothing news there. So that saturation has already happened. Now people are asking for something new, whereas we are the same people who had pushed for the similar kind of content. So that
Right.
diversity is anyway lost. And
Right.
I don't know whose loss is more because in as far as I know, the creators are finding their expression somewhere else. The minute they realize that this is not the platform which is going to be appreciating it, they have found their niche audience somewhere else. These are the hidden worlds or the offline worlds now where this is already happening. At our level, I definitely feel that it's my loss because I
Hmm.
could be privy to something more beautiful, authentic, and joyful, but I no longer have access to this because million other people said we don't want it.
Right. It's not just about like the full-time creators, right? At least where we understand that they've taken a conscious decision to quit their jobs or they to move to this sort of the lifestyle where they technically, let's say we have like 24 hours to think about this and figure this stuff out, right? But in the recent past, even the people with full-time jobs face the pressure. In fact, I know a lot of organizations have separate columns in their appraisal forms, which talks about what are the side projects that you have done, how have you contributed to the community, and have you taken any sort of courses, right? And
Mhm.
once you come out in public and there are your peers are appearing in podcasts, they're running a YouTube channel, and etc., building side projects. So do you think that even the way the workspace is being perceived, like the career is being perceived, is changed because of this?
Absolutely. It's become such a crucial, it's almost like a life skill now. And I see this happening in our team also because we're a lean team. So every
Mhm.
time something goes up on social media, our social media person comes and says, amplify, engage. And not everybody wants to amplify, not everybody wants to engage also because
Right.
to each their own. There's a reason why consciously some of the team members are so inactive on social media. And now suddenly we
Right.
are telling that, of course, we say it with a request, please amplify and please engage. But it's
Right.
expected out of them. And then it goes a little further. Then we say, please write something, right?
Hmm.
Now, to write something, I'm asking somebody from our engineering team to write something while they pull themselves out of their work environment. And now suddenly they have to come and then they have to write something. Now, this is us. as an empathetic organization, Dharmesh, right, where we are consciously saying that, hey, it's okay someday if you don't feel like writing, just reshare and everything. But I know of so many organizations where hirings are actually being made. And when I ask them why this person, they say, oh, look at their social media clout. There used to be clout a couple of years ago. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it all started. Where what's your clout score? I don't know if they're
right.
still asking this question, but it has become a huge parameter because now you want each and every person in your organization to become a marketeer and an ambassador for the work that you're doing. Now, every person, doesn't matter what team that or what role that they're going to be playing, you want their network to immediately start amplifying whatever it is that you're posting and you're creating. So, this metric, this life skill of being able to socialize on the virtual world and to be able to be creative, which doesn't necessarily all of us have to be, we're being pushed to be creative. We never asked these questions, it just somehow happened. Some of the people were influencers in our team in the past, but it's an active conversation, especially in the startup community. Very
Yeah,
active communication.
yeah, yeah. As an extension of this, on the other side, I see some interesting like themes that are happening, right? For example, I'm aware of a designer from Europe. She talks a lot about diversity, inclusion, and a lot of this sort of how to address what are the pronouns that we should use, and all of that's what her feed is filled with. And but she's also a designer. She talks about how in design we should be using certain ideas and methodologies to have inclusion, right? What I interestingly found is there are organizations like these bigger organizations recruit her or like have her in a team because they also not just getting an employee but also they're able to wear that brand. In some cases it's good, in some cases it's we don't know if they're really looking to do that or because that's the easiest route to do, right?
Yeah.
Rather than saying that hey, I'm going to structurally change my organization, I might as well hire this person, right? Because then I'm sending out a certain kind of signal,
Yeah.
right? Are we seeing such patterns in India? What's your take on it?
Yes, because see, right now, when you hire an employee, especially in startup fraternity and even otherwise, this branding. So, when a new employee joins in, they're not just bringing their talent, they're also
Hmm.
bringing, and one of our team member said this very beautifully that the new currency in today's time is content. And I want to add to it is also influence. So, when
Right,
you join an organization, what are you bringing? Are you bringing content with you or are you bringing influence with you? And
right,
it has to be aligned with what the organization would have otherwise spent. And now they will not need to spend it because now they have hired somebody like you who will
hmm,
represent it and who will on an ad hoc manner will take care of this, right?
right.
We call this fad slash influence hiring
Hmm,
because that's what this hiring strategy is for, that you want to be able to create that brand extension for yourself, and that's why you categorically go and hire those people or bring those members in the team who will start talking about your brand as these extensions. So until now those hashtags were missing, but with this person now here, this is going to get included. But what's missing there is the backside, at the back end is the basic groundwork, Dharmesh. Right?
hmm.
That's where we see a lot of fallout also happening. I don't think there is more loss that the organizations or the companies realize for themselves, but especially for the individuals, this is not working out because and that's why I'm calling it fad hiring, because it's not going to last long. If the basic framework is not set, then that
Can
person
you
will
give
not
us
be
an
able to.
an example, or can you double click on that?
Yeah, let's look at members from the from the community, right? We call
Right.
it pride hiring, and
Hmm.
June is coming in. A lot of pride hiring will happen. But when you hire somebody and you bring them in the organization, yes, you will be able to circulate some numbers and everything will be there. Now, internally in the organization, if people do not have number one, the language, and going back to DEIBA
Hmm.
formula
Hmm.
once again, right? You have brought in this diversity in your team. Let's talk about equity. Do you even know what they need? Because you have never had the
Hmm.
language to speak to a member from the community. You don't even know how to sit with them. Either do it as a pre work or do it now that you have welcomed them in your team. Do you know what kind of policies are required for them? Do you know what additions or modifications are required in your, let's say, something as basic as healthcare?
Hmm.
Infrastructure. Do you even have, and I know we have a lot of work from home and remote and hybrid work environment, but do you even have the infrastructure in your brick and mortar offices? to cater to them. Recently, we had a very deep dive conversation on new washrooms in the workplace, but that's as basic as it gets. Now,
Right.
more cultural in terms of speaking. If you do not even know, Dharmesh, how to interact with somebody who is a trans person, I look like this, but I'm transitioning towards
Mm,
somebody else, right? How many people amongst us once again know how to ask the right questions and speak the language and be respectable and acknowledge the boundaries? All these elements are contributing towards equitable environment, wherein
mm,
the person that I am, because of my individuality, is not going to limit me with respect to my growth, my opportunities in your workplace, whether I'm being invited to the meetings, the way people are talking about me, the kind of jokes that are being cracked here. And these days we're living in an era where we have to really upgrade our language. Okay, how
yeah.
easily we say the word if somebody is just suddenly in a bad mood, that oh, this person has lost their mind, or pagal hai kya. This all these elements are are insensitive elements in our workplaces. Going back to the member from the community, then comes the next part, which is inclusion. If there is no equitable environment which has been thoughtfully put towards, you really think I feel included, right?
Mm,
Five of you, the names that I see on the screen right now, if you have never interacted with a member from the community and if you do not have the language for it and the systems and processes are not there in place, I am not going to feel included there, which means that my morale is already going down, my productivity is
right.
already going down, and I don't feel like I belong here. I've
Mm,
already started feeling that this workplace is not for me. So you can bring somebody in the best of the concierge, you can send the most amazing car for me. But when I come to your place, if your place is not ready for me, I would want to leave immediately. Right?
yeah.
And then how is a person going to grow and how an organization is going to grow with
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like this, right? So it's creating more burnout, mental distress, and affecting more to the individual than to the organization, because I think organization move on very quickly.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
hey, sorry, I live in
No
white
worries.
area.
No
It's
worries.
part and parcel. So the point here is, until and unless you prepare the land and the soil to grow that particular human that
Mhm.
you're bringing, it's going to die. And thankfully, humans are not plants. They will uproot themselves and they'll just walk away. Thankfully, humans
Right.
are not plants. And organizations will just bring somebody else for that role.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
purpose was anyway done. These individuals don't leave the organization and go and talk about it on social media. For them, finding the next role, the next job, the next project is more of a priority, because anyway, the opportunities are very limited. And that
Right.
applies to different diversity sets.
How open or organization, let's say, for example, there could be a lot of people who just want to do this like a checklist, right? They might say that, hey, I want to do this because I don't know, whatever, for the lack of reasons, I'm asked to do it. But that's where you come in and you're trying to educate and you're trying to sort of, quote unquote, again, like you're trying to influence the entire organization at these multiple levels. How open are they to listen to an external person trying to change them? Is there any success metrics that you could measure saying that, hey, I've done this, I've
Mhm.
seen this change, and this is where it stops. I don't need to do anything more. How do you measure success there?
So success metric is definitely you start with the data point. So one thing that we are very clear on is that we don't want any subjectivity in the work that we do. Thankfully everyone in the team is very much aligned with the fact that we don't just want to hear good work, great work, but we should be able to say how much work or how much progress has been done. So everything that we starts with the baseline of the organization. It's as simple as that. Now, coming back to how open the organization is, Dharmesh, in the past 3 years, if you ask me, the improvement or the number of projects that we have been doing, they have tripled actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see a lot more organizations converting towards actually doing this sincerely. And that's a ray of hope, and that's an amazing thing to actually see, not just as an individual who is working in this field, but also somebody, although a lot privileged, but still belonging to a small section of the minorities that we are talking about increasing in the workplace. I do acknowledge my privilege, by the way, but just from an affected party, I do feel that happy about that also. But as a
Right.
professional, as an advisor in this field, as an entity, it's so amazing to see the number of organizations and leaders, especially in the boardrooms. So 2 years ago, what HR would be struggling with, now I see the leaders, the boardroom, the directors, the founders, them thinking and asking this question, that what is it that we can do about this, or we genuinely want to do this. Two things I will contribute for this change. Number one, they have tested and tried and failed, right?
Mm.
Which is a good thing, because sometimes I think falling is very important for you to, or doing something not right is very important to, for somebody to know that there is a right approach to it, there is a
Yeah.
method to it. And that's where the learnings are being taken, and then they say that okay, now we need to do it the proper way. The second is, once again I'll go back to, in the remote world, in the remote hiring world, in the global world, the kind of information and data points that we are now privy to, and also in the last 2 years, because nowhere in the entire history of corporate India, as well as I think even across the world, we were privy to the information of our employee base the way that we became privy to in the past 2 years.
Mm.
We had no idea what an individual was going through. We had
Right.
no idea what kind of mental space, emotional space, or bandwidth that they had at their end. We were
Right.
only concerned with the physicality of our
Mm.
employee group. We were only concerned that this person has marked their attendance and they are here in the office, and nothing else needs to be taken care of. But ever since in the last 2 years, companies have taken or rented space in everybody's home. Forcefully, I would say, because I don't think
Yeah.
any person gave this permission, but forcefully, every company took that space in people's home. They became privy to so much that they did not know earlier. What used to be just the visibility of a human resource slash capital became so much more insightful. There's so much more
Yeah.
depth to an individual, and what affects their productivity, what affects their efficiency at work is what organizations they were not looking for, but it just started being thrown their way. Luckily, a lot of them have started realizing that, hey, we have to do something about it, because if we don't, this remote hybrid work is here to stay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of folks who are trying to build playbooks around how to work for in a remote environment, or constantly, even during like the pandemic, I had a lot of meetings or checkups with my manager, which is just like feeler checkups, like how are you feeling, right? This could have happened even in an offline setup, but no one, it never occurred to anyone saying that, hey, I might need to check up with them, right? Especially even in my family, the conversations around mental health or being in a low place has started propping up, because my parents have been running a shop for almost 30 years, and never in their lifetime they were ever shut their shop for 15, 20 days together
Mhm.
and been in a home where there's nothing else to do. So they almost start feeling handicapped, and then they started expressing their feelings. That's the first time I heard my mom expressing her feeling of stage. I feel different, right? I'm not even sure if she had vocabulary, the right kind of words. I feel low, or due to her lack of knowledge, she might go ahead and say, I feel depressed. But what she probably means is she feels low, right? I think that conversation has sprung up everywhere, and it's okay to also talk about it. Is what I feel, right?
It's very
Um,
important, Dharmesh, to talk about this. Sorry to interrupt, but it's very important
yeah.
because I believe that's where so usually companies and teams do not really appreciate diversity, right? Because they don't really know directly how to connect it with the business growth. We
Hmm.
still are doing that activity. And while we may have data at global level that if these many women, let's say for an example, these many women join the economy, then there's a 200 trillion boost and all those numbers are there. Companies do not know, but what is it going to benefit for me? That direct math has to happen. But even if companies don't understand anything, what's the beauty of diversity is that between you, me, and five more people here, even if you don't understand what I'm going through, that diversity will allow another person to be able to relate. And even if 10 more people don't understand, there will be still one person who will be able to relate, empathize, first hand, second hand, being a witness, bystander in any manner. There will be some element of relatability that will be possible if you have diversity. So
Yeah.
that exchange, that richness of experience is yet to be realized by companies, that if nothing else, if as a leader you cannot be everywhere, then at least you make sure that your team is diverse enough, so that even if you don't have the language for it, someone else will make it up for your
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
inadequacy, but it's just like
To
another
compensate.
another plug in the picture, that
Yeah.
someone else will take care of it.
Yeah. No, I remember even in some of the previous workspace places that I used to be a part of. It's not just about the gender, right? It's about the kind of people that you hang out. So I know a lot of times the manager would resolve some of the issues with his employee by just going for a drink, right? What if you're not that kind of person? There is a lot of this, hey bro, come, let's go hang out for a sutta, so chai, and let's go for a drink. What if somebody who does not fit into that? Like someone could be married, they could have like children waiting there at their home, right? And they don't necessarily fit into that sort of workflow or the culture. And then there's a sense of, oh, I'm missing out a lot of these things that's happening, because the next day you come and then there are people cracking up with the jokes of what happened last night in the
Yeah.
bar, and you're missing out, and you feel that, hey, I don't belong here anymore, sort of thing.
This is real. This is real. This what you're talking about is affinity slash association bias. And honestly speaking, I mean that because that's a day-to-day thing that we do at Ungender. And I'll go back to what you asked me in the beginning, right? I can actually send you a list of 130 plus biases that exist in all of us. And that's just like minimum that I'm talking about, Dharmesh, right now. All these
Right.
things are real. This fear of missing out just because I do not crack the same joke, or I do not even laugh at the same joke that you are cracking. This fear is real because not because you're consciously doing it, but it's at such a subconscious level that it will affect the way I will grow in your team. And
Right.
it's not by design that you will favor another person who's from the same hometown, let's say, or who has
Right.
studied in the same college, or maybe
Right.
both of you are travelers, both of you like this adventurer traveling, and I am not. Right? It's not as if that you're consciously in your appraisal form saying that this person travels like me only. But at a subconscious level, it
Yeah.
is going to impact the way that you will do the appraisal for that person, or
Exactly.
select that person for that
Yeah.
important late night or important high potential project that you're about to get into. Because all of us as humans, basic nature, we want less frictions, which is so
Hmm.
sad, right? Because whenever we have less frictions, it also means that we have less difference of opinions. We have less times when we are asking the other person, I don't know, can you tell me about it? Because we just quickly want to get to the human to human onboarding or induction. So that's why the first few questions are which city, which college, and the minute we have that sorted, oh, same college, same city. Now we know that we don't have to deal with all these differences.
Yeah.
Right now,
Yeah.
we just talk about work. Now we, at a fundamental level, we are sorted. But what happens
Yeah.
when you're at fundamental level, you're sorted, is that difference of experience, that richness of experience will not percolate. And
Right.
that brings me to another topic, like how do we look the culture fit? I think when we are hiring people, when we are interviewing people, when companies and the leaders say that we're just looking for that culture fit, most of the people don't even understand what culture fit means because the
Right.
culture fit revolves around all these elements only.
Yeah.
This is not culture fit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. True. That's so true. That I've also faced that in multiple different sort of capacities. But before that, I wanted to cover one important topic because we are running out of time, which is around the creator economy, the cancel culture, right? Which leads to a lot of harassment and
Yeah.
um, creators being put in a really low point. So, like how we started, like when traditionally we were consuming media on a television or whatever. It could be our relatives or parents. They could pass comments. Like it never affected the other person. But
Yeah.
here we have a platform where someone could be saying something rational or something. They could just be an expression
Yeah.
that I'm not sure if it's our tolerance levels have gone low, or is it because that we have a way to express and we keep expressing? Because there could be 100 good comments appreciating what we do, but there's just one negative comment which sort of nullifies everything that you've done for the day and can put you at a really bad place. What is your take on social media, cancel culture, and the online harassment? And please help us understand it from the gender lens also.
So definitely there's okay. I don't want to say that online trolls and harassment happen for a specific gender or
Mhm.
specific gender group, but it is a reality. But let me ungender this conversation first, and then I will bring
Sure.
the gender perspective here. The fear is real, and a
Mhm.
lot of people say, "How do you handle it?" Then I'm saying I or anybody else that how do you actually go about handling it? There's no way of handling it, Dharmesh. I know people, a lot of people who don't even tweet, write anything, voice out any opinion because of the cancel culture, right? Forget
Mm.
about saying something and then not being able to receive it. These are
Mm.
individuals who are not even expressing themselves because they see 100 other people who have a way of articulating their thoughts or who have a stronger grasp on language, vocabulary, and who are influencer who can be trolled in an instant or whose videos or tweets can become memes within half an hour. So
Yeah.
trolling is, instead of cancel culture, I want to call it trolling, because you can easily become a joke online with no due respect to whatever you have accomplished in your professional life, in your domain. Yesterday, what you achieved, no matter how amazing, intelligent, and powerful you are, social media world is cruel. And you while it has given an amazing platform for a lot of purpose and causes, it is a cruel world and it's easy to get away from that world. You can't catch people. If somebody comes and tells me something on my face, if you come and you tell me something on my face, I can still make you sit down with me and still have a conversation and debate it, still have a difficult conversation and put my point forth to you in the human form, physical human form. In social media, it's almost like people are sitting with like rotten tomatoes in their hands, and sadly majority of the trolling is done by people who actually have, I think, nothing else going on in their life.
Yeah.
It's sad, right? Because an intelligent conversation, I don't think anybody is afraid of an intelligent conversation.
Yeah.
Nobody is. In difficult debate, nobody is afraid of that also. You want to negate somebody's opinion, I don't think people have any issue with that also. It's the
Yeah.
illogical trolling that is sad. And bringing the next topic here, the kind of humor that we have started finding entertaining. There's a certain cheapness to it now. We take fun and joy in seeing somebody getting trolled.
Mm.
And I think all of us at some level have contributed to it. If consciously we are staying away from it, that's amazing. But all of us have contributed to it and still do in some way or the other. So before we even start telling somebody that, hey, go ahead and post, go ahead and express yourself, where is that safe space? And
Mm.
if it's a room of people that you can tell me that, Pallavi, I know these 100 people, you can still give me that confidence.
Right.
But in this world of social media where I'm writing somewhere from this closed room, I don't even know where all these my one tweet or my one video is going to do make
Yeah.
rounds, and for
Mhm.
eternity, because once it's up there, it's there,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? How do you even start telling somebody that don't worry about it
Right. Right. Right.
when
And
you
also,
and I both know the enormity of it, that it's
yeah.
just
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It's also the fact that we are all evaluating our past in the present. Let's say, for example, I could be the same person physically, identity wise, but I'm not the same person I used to be when I'm 20, right? When I was 25. I could have talked about multiple stuff online without knowing the repercussions of it. Now I've been asked to hold accountable for it 10 years later, right?
Yeah.
Where my lens could have changed or my way of looking at life could have changed, which is even more dangerous. How do I write or express something which is future proof, which is something that it's close to impossible,
You
right?
can't become troll proof. Okay, let's
Yeah,
begin by that. Nobody is troll proof in this world, and anybody, and we have seen the most powerful people on this planet being trolled, and nobody is troll proof. So that's the first premise. And I hope nobody, and I can completely relate with what you just said, Dharmesh, because I hope nobody ever digs out whatever I used to write 8 years ago. I myself am not very proud of it, but I'll own it up. Okay. Someday,
yeah,
somebody still like puts it on my face, I will still own it up. But yes,
yeah,
I think how we are evolving as an individual is so public and it's
yeah,
so visible to the entire world, and it can be replayed anytime. It's like my
yeah,
one bad act. And
yeah,
it was not a bad act, right? It's all about context. Maybe 8 years
yeah,
ago, it was an amazing act,
yeah,
fabulous. The same recording. Maybe 8 years
mm,
down the line, someone will say, "Oh, look at you, Pallavi, what kind of speaker you were." You get it?
true.
Why
Yeah,
would you
yeah,
just do that, right?
yeah, yeah,
You have to sign up for this that, hey, I'm not going to care today and I'm not going to care 10 years down the line.
yeah.
I'm just going to own it up, but it's easier said than done.
It's
Either
it's
you
quite
are
a
that
challenge.
person or you're not that person.
Yeah,
It can be tough. I've seen people going through a lot of mental trauma
yeah,
because it was just not in them to do that. And
right.
it's
Yeah,
sad because they could have created something very phenomenal for all of us to consume.
true, true, true.
Sorry, you were
I ha-
something I interrupted. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a final couple of questions, but in meanwhile, folks, if you have any questions, please drop us in the chat and I'll take them up and ask Pallavi. So even Facebook has this feature, right? Which shows your memories from 10 years back, right? I have no idea who actually conceptualized this feature. I've never really been happy after seeing any of those notifications. It makes me go cringe. And every time I just deleted the post, like, and it is never a happy thing to actually look what you've been doing 10 decades back. Like I remember having posts which where everything is capital, right? I'm like, what was I even thinking, right? Why is everything capital? Sort of the thing, right? So yeah, and even more like, so for example, there are a lot of folks, they would have no idea that these things will come haunting back once they become like celebrity or famous, or they could have put in a lot more effort. Their journey would have had like so much hurdles, but we reduce all of it to either one tweet or one video or one talk. And I also feel this thing, let's say I could take all my time in writing like a tweet thread of 1,000 words or 500 words or whatever, but Twitter allows you to only reply in 280 characters, right?
Yeah.
Your thoughts could be so much that you don't want to put effort into writing that. It's more easy for you to write as idiot, right?
Yeah.
Rather than
Yeah.
me trying to express what I'm trying to think. Similarly, in Instagram, right? You're seeing a reel. The Instagram does not allow you to reply by a reel, right? It says it gives you a small text box. The
Yeah.
what I can think about with the text box is also small. My mind is also small. I will write only stupid. Right? So that is how it happened.
No, that's true. And I think we need to replicate how, if you and I have known each other for years and years, how I will not keep reminding you that, hey, Dharmesh, do you remember 7 years ago you did this? You used to sit like this, or you used to talk like that, or you used to laugh
Yeah,
like this.
yeah,
I'll not do this as a human to another person. If I care for
yeah,
that person, I think with this collective and a large platform, this large platform will all of us and all our lives are now so visible to each other. Our
yeah,
thoughts, our personal life. I think I can actually now just stalk somebody and say that, okay, 4 years ago, this was their living standard, and now this is their living standard, because you're not just seeing their face, you're also seeing the surroundings, the clothes, the
yeah.
way they dress, everything. We are privy to so much information, and that brings me to the fundamental concept, Dharmesh, that as a society, do we really know how to handle this much information
Hmm.
which we are now privy to?
Yeah,
They're curious, which is a good
yeah,
thing. People told us that, hey, be curious, because if you're curious, you will learn. If you're not curious, if you're not asking questions, if you're not engaging, then you will miss out. The
yeah,
thing is that as we receive this information, Now it's time for us to also start learning how to handle this information, this amount of information which we are just actively, inactively, passively privy to, and is coming our way. And if I care for you as an individual because I know you, then how will I remind you this? Number one.
Yeah.
And why will I remind you of this? And what's the purpose of doing this? It's just that technology has made it so easy for us to just throw things at people's face. Somewhere information handling and sensitivity is something that we need to now start upgrading ourselves with. We're not ready. I don't think any one
Yeah.
of us were ready to consume this much information in an active slash
True.
passive manner.
True.
Now
True.
we know that we need to.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful, beautiful, right? Sometimes I even feel that I was not even looking for this information. All of a sudden it pops up in my feed. And it's not even taking time to explain me what it is. It's just 30 seconds and it goes away, right? And I kind of assume that, hey, now I know that piece of information. Now I'll go and say this to the other people. And that's how it sort of
Yeah.
percolates
And,
into
and the
different.
algos don't let you take the mistakes back also. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I think recently Sonam Kapoor and her partner announced their pregnancy, and by mistake I clicked on it, and now I'm just privy to entire information about their life. I don't even want it, but I actually want to go and undo that click, right?
yeah,
So these mistakes, I think it's not just when you're writing something, but also any click and any conversation, any keyword that you end up writing. Now, suddenly you're subscribed. Some subscriptions I would like to do consciously.
yeah,
Some subscriptions, they're just happening for us.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
that's I would say is that's a serious problem. Somebody really need to look at that.
Yeah, I think they mimic how life works. So you can't undo stuff in life. So you can undo stuff even in social media.
Did we know social media is going to become that powerful? I would be like interested in that someday then.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So I think that brings us to the end of this conversation. Thanks a lot for being patient and having this conversation with us. And probably we should keep chatting. Like there are a lot of nuances. Maybe we could do each of this as a podcast in future. Maybe we pick up some of these topics and discuss further.
Anytime call me for these topics. Happy to come talk. And this was such a wonderful flow. Thank you so much for all
Same
the
here,
input
same
that
here.
you shared.
Same here, same here. Thoroughly enjoy the conversation.
Yes, 10 years down
Awesome.
the line, we'll look back on this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is going on YouTube, right? So 10 years down the line, hopefully YouTube doesn't remind me. Let's hope for good.
Done thing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, folks. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Have a great day.
Take
Chat.
care, everyone. Stay
Yeah.
safe, stay inclusive. Bye.